The starship Aegis hummed softly as it pierced the gray atmosphere of Kevar-9. Outside the thick viewing ports, the planet stretched endlessly an arid expanse of rolling dunes and jagged rock formations bathed in a dull, muted light. No signs of life stirred beneath the heavy clouds, only the whisper of shifting sands. On the bridge, Commander Lena Voss watched the barren landscape with a steady gaze. Years of exploration had taught her to expect the unexpected, yet something about this place unsettled her. The reports had been cryptic, an intermittent signal, pulsing from somewhere deep in the southern deserts, had drawn the Gravewalkers, her team of elite explorers, to this forgotten world. "Touchdown in 15. Announced Yarrick, the ship's pilot, fingers dancing over the controls. His voice was calm, but Lena caught the slight edge of tension beneath. Lena nodded. "Prepare the ground crew. We need a full sweep once we land." Around her, the team moved with practiced efficiency. Each member was a specialist, trained. For extremes, geologists, exobiologists, engineers, all ready to face whatever secrets Kevar-9 might hold. As the Aegis touched down, the ground trembled faintly beneath them. Outside, a fine dust hung in the air, coating every surface in a thin, pale film. The hatch opened with a hiss, and Lena stepped down onto the planet's surface. Feeling the crunch of sand beneath her boots, the silence was immediate and complete. No wind stirred, no birds called, no distant hum of life. Lena glanced around. The sky was an endless dome of ash gray. The light diffused and muted as if the planet itself absorbed sound and color. "Feels like we're walking inside a dream," whispered Kale, the geologist, as he crouched beside a cracked stone, tracing the faint lines etched into its surface. Lena agreed, but she kept her voice firm. "Stay alert. This silence could mean nothing, or it could mean everything." The team advanced carefully, scanning the horizon. The signal they sought was faint but persistent, guiding them toward the south, a region marked by massive rock spires and deep canyons. As they moved, strange shapes began to emerge beneath the dust, fragments of structures that hinted at a long-lost civilization. Ruins rose like shadows from the sand, crumbling walls and pillars half swallowed by time. "Look at this," called Ira, the exobiologist, pointing to a fragment of metal embedded in the sand. It was smooth, crafted, and bore symbols unlike any known script. Lena knelt beside her. Could these be remnants of the original inhabitants? Ira nodded slowly. "Possibly, but their technology, it's unlike anything in our records." The team paused, feeling the weight of history pressing down upon them. Kevar-9 was not a forgotten wasteland. It was a tomb, a resting place of stories long buried beneath sand and silence. As night fell, the temperature plummeted. The team gathered around a flickering campfire, but even its crackle seemed muted. Swallowed by the vast quiet, Lena stared up at the stars, barely visible through the dense clouds. A chill ran down her spine. Somewhere out there, the signal pulsed Anna's heartbeat in the darkness, calling to them. But with the stars came a sense of being watched. From the edges of the camp, shadows flickered. The desert, it seemed, was not empty. Lena tightened her grip on her scanner. "We're not alone." And with that, the Gravewalkers settled into their first night on Kevar-9, where silence was not peace, and bones waited beneath the sands. The sun rose slowly over Kevar-9, casting pale light across the endless dunes. The Gravewalkers broke camp with practiced precision, but the weight of the planet's eerie silence hung over them like a shadow. Commander Lena Voss led the group toward the coordinates where the mysterious signal was strongest. Their boots sank into the fine dust, leaving fragile impressions quickly swallowed by shifting winds. The landscape stretched desolate and unyielding, with jagged rocks piercing the horizon like broken teeth. Kale, the geologist, paused suddenly, pointing at the sand. "Look at this." The dust had formed into delicate patterns, thin lines, and shapes that shimmered faintly in the morning light. They weren't random. Someone or something had created them. Ira leaned in, brushing her gloved fingers over the sand. Could it be natural? Wind formations, perhaps. Lena shook her head. No, these lines have purpose, like markings or signs. As they moved onward, the patterns became more complex. Circles intertwined with angular shapes, forming cryptic designs that stretched for yards beneath their feet. The signal seemed to pulse in time with these strange symbols, as if the planet itself were trying to speak. At midday, the team reached a ridge overlooking a vast depression. Below them lay an ancient city, ruined and half-buried, its crumbling walls swallowed by centuries of sand. Lena raised her hand, signaling a halt. This is it. The source of the signal must be here. Yarrick, the pilot turned scout, scanned the area with his sensors. Power readings are faint but steady. Could be underground. Ira's eyes sparkled with excitement. If the signal's coming from below, maybe something still lives down there. Lena's jaw tightened. Or something still watches. They descended into the ruins carefully, the silence pressing closer with every step. The air was heavy, carrying a scent like dry stone and forgotten memories. Kale knelt beside a shattered column, tracing the symbols carved into its surface. These matched the markings in the sand. Lena examined them. The symbols seemed to tell a story, though its meaning was obscured by time. Figures locked in conflict, strange creatures looming over fallen cities. A tale of a forgotten war. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath them. A low rumble echoed faintly through the ruins. "Stay alert," Lena ordered. Scanning the shadows, from the corner of her eye, she caught movement, something small and quick, darting behind a broken wall. She raised her scanner. The device beeped. Rapidly, the signal was stronger here, pulsing from below. Ira's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's like the planet is alive, watching us." As the team prepared to investigate further, the sky darkened unexpectedly. A thick haze rolled in, swallowing the ruins in a ghostly fog. Visibility dropped to mere feet. Lena called the group together. "We'll set up camp here. No one moves alone." That night, the desert air grew colder. The crackling fire was no comfort, its warmth swallowed by the vast quiet. Lena's thoughts churned. The signal source was close, but so was the unknown presence stalking them. Every rustle in the wind, every shifting shadow seemed to carry a warning. Ira studied the symbols again, tracing the patterns with a trembling finger. These markings, they're more than history. They're a message, a warning. Nodded slowly. "We're not just exploring. We've stumbled into something that wants to stay buried." Outside the circle of firelight, the desert whispered. The dust shifted like a living thing, and unseen eyes watched from the shadows. The Gravewalkers knew one thing for certain. Kevar-9 held secrets far darker than they had imagined, and the silence was only beginning. The next morning, a pale sun rose over the ruins, casting long shadows across the cracked stone. Commander Lena Voss gathered her team, determination etched across her face. The signal source lay deeper beneath the planet's surface, and they had no choice but to descend further into the unknown. As they moved carefully through the ruined city, their boots stirred up ancient dust, but no other sound answered them. The silence clung to them like a shroud. Kale led the way, scanning the terrain with his instruments. "We're approaching a valley beyond the ruins," he reported. Satellite scans showed there's something large. Lena nodded. "Let's see what Kevar-9 is hiding." They pushed forward until the ruins gave way to an open expanse, vast plains scattered with enormous bones, bleached white and cracked by time. Massive femurs and rib cages lay half buried in sand. Remnants of creatures that dwarfed any living beings the team had ever seen. The sight was breathtaking and terrifying. These were no ordinary fossils. They seemed almost deliberately as if placed in warning. Ira crouched beside one of the massive bones, running her fingers over its surface. These aren't just bones. Someone carved into them. Lena stepped closer and saw the faint etching symbols matching those in the ruins and the sand. But here, the markings were more vivid, telling a different story. They speak of a hunt, Kale said quietly. Not just survival, but a deliberate pursuit. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Had the creatures been prey? And if so, what had hunted them? Lena scanned the horizon. The desert winds had shaped strange formations in the sand around the bones, almost like ritual circles. Something brought these creatures here, she said, and something else came after them. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed across the plain, causing the dust to swirl in eerie patterns. The team stiffened. The planet was alive in its own way, ancient heartbeat pulsing beneath the surface. Ira's voice was tight. I think whatever's here isn't gone. It's waiting. Lena activated her scanner, trying to detect movement beyond their sight. The device beeped erratically, picking up faint traces almost like whispers beneath the static. Ghost signals, Yarrick muttered. The kind that don't belong to anything alive. That night, the camp was restless. The vastness of the bone field seemed to amplify every sound, the crunch of footsteps, the shifting wind, the barely perceptible hum of the planet. Lena paced near the fire, thoughts racing. The silence was no accident. It was a warning. Something had hunted the giants to extinction, and its presence lingered like a shadow. Suddenly, Ira called out softly, "Look." From the edge of the bone field, a flicker of movement shapes that vanished when anyone turned toward them. Shadows without. Bodies? Lena's heart quickened. The Gravewalkers were not alone. A sense of ancient dread settled over the team. They were walking on hallowed ground, where silence was a weapon. And bones told stories no one wanted to hear. Tomorrow? We find out who or what's still here, Lena said, voice low but firm. The desert seemed to breathe around them, and the night carried whispers only the bones could understand. The dawn on Kevar-9 was cold and unforgiving, the sun barely piercing the thick haze that hung low over the bone field. Commander Lena Voss surveyed the horizon, the weight of the previous night's unease pressing heavy on her chest. The flickering shadows at the edge of their camp lingered in her thoughts, ghosts, or something more. The team packed up silently, every movement deliberate and watchful. No one spoke above a whisper. The planet's oppressive quiet seemed to absorb even their words. The silence was a presence itself, a constant companion that reminded them of how small they truly were. Yarrick scanned the perimeter one last time. Sensors picking up strange readings near the southern ridge, he said. Low energy spikes, like pulses, but faint. Lena nodded. Let's keep moving. We need to find the source before the night swallows us. They made their way toward the ridge, the sand crunching underfoot, the only sound breaking the stillness. But as the sun dipped lower, the strange sensation of being watched returned, stronger this time. Eyes seemed to flicker at the edges of vision. Shadows shifting just beyond the firelight. Suddenly, a sharp cry shattered the silence, a panicked shout from Kale. Lena spun toward the sound, heart pounding. Kale stood frozen, pointing toward the dunes. There. He gasped. At first, there was nothing, only the empty desert stretching endlessly. Then a movement of fleeting silhouette slipping behind a jagged rock. The team froze. The presence was no longer just a feeling. It was real. Lena raised her scanner, sweeping the area, but the device flickered, struggling to maintain a lock. The shadows seemed to interfere with technology, as if the planet itself rejected intrusion. "We're not alone," Lena said quietly, "and whatever's here doesn't want us." The night deepened, bringing with it a chill that settled deep into their bones. The team huddled close around their campfire, its light flickering weakly against the advancing darkness. Ira's voice was barely audible. The silence, it's more than just quiet. It's like a force. It presses in, drowns out everything. Else Lena nodded, her eyes scanning the surrounding dunes. It's a warning. As the hours passed, strange noises teased the edges of hearing soft rustlings. Whispered sighs, the faintest echoes that seemed to drift just beyond reach. The Gravewalkers strained to catch them, but the sounds slipped away like smoke. Suddenly, a cry shattered the fragile scream cut short, swallowed by the silence. Lena sprang to her feet. But Ira was gone. Panic surged through the team. They called her name, their voices hushed but urgent. But only the empty desert answered. Lena grabbed her flashlight and ran toward where Ira had disappeared. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating swirling dust but no sign of her companion. Yarek's scanner beeped erratically, struggling to read any signs of life. It's like she vanished. Lena's breath caught. The silence was not just absence of sound. It was a presence and entity, capable of erasing existence itself. "Regroup," Lena ordered, voice steady despite the fear. "We move together. No one left behind." As they gathered, the camp was eerily quiet. The fire flickered out, swallowed by a sudden gust of wind. Darkness claimed them completely. Lena's heart hammered. The shadows that had haunted their journey were closing. In the desert was alive, and it was hungry for silence. Darkness swallowed the camp like a heavy cloak, and the Gravewalkers stood in tight formation, eyes scanning the shifting shadows that seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally in the flickering remnants of their firelight. Ira's sudden disappearance cast a pall over the group, a stark reminder that Kevar-9 was more than a barren wasteland. Lena's voice cut through the silence, firm and commanding. "We need to find her now. Stay close. No sudden movements." Yarek adjusted his scanner, which had gone haywire moments after the scream. The device's erratic beeping provided no solid clues, only a chaotic tangle of signals that couldn't be interpreted. "The readings are all over the place. It's like the planet is scrambling our instruments." Kale's usually steady hands trembled as he adjusted his helmet light. What if it's not the planet? What if something else is interfering? Lena didn't answer. Her gut told her it was both the environment and something alive. Or perhaps something that once was, with flashlights piercing the darkness. The team moved cautiously toward where Ira had vanished. The sand beneath their boots was strangely soft, as if hiding deeper secrets. Suddenly, the wind shifted. A dry, rattling sound echoed, like bones grinding against each other. The team froze. There whispered Kale, pointing ahead. Ahead lay a shallow depression littered with more bones, larger, older, and arranged in unnatural patterns. The symbols they'd seen before were etched deeply into the earth around the bones, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Lena knelt, tracing the symbols with a gloved finger. These aren't just markings, they're a map, or a warning. The ground beneath them trembled faintly. The glow intensified, bathing the bones in a spectral light. The team's breath caught in their throats. A sudden flash revealed movementa. Glimpse of something slipping between the dunes, too fast to be caught by the eye. Lena called out, "Ira." Silence answered again. The shadows deepened, twisting into shapes that mocked human form. The air grew thick with tension, the line between the physical and the unseen blurring. Yarick's voice was sharp. We're not alone, and whatevers. Here is watching. As the team circled the bone field, Lena's mind raced. This was no ordinary planet. It was a tomb, a prison, a warning etched in flesh and stone. Suddenly, from the far edge of the valley, a low, resonant hum began, an eerie vibration that seemed to pulse in harmony with the glowing symbols. The ground vibrated stronger. The bones rattled. Kale stumbled back. It's activating something. Lena grabbed his arm. Get ready. Whatever's coming, it's close. Without warning, a shard of light burst from the center of the bone circle, shooting upward like a beacon. The team shielded their eyes as the light coalesced into a shimmering portal, an opening into the depths beneath the planet. The hum became a roar. Through the portal, ghostly shapes emerged, wisps of ancient energy, echoes of a forgotten past. They swirled and twisted, casting haunting patterns on the sand. Lena stepped forward, heart pounding. Ira. From the swirling mist, a figure appeared, faint, translucent, but unmistakably human. Ira's voice trembled from beyond the veil. I'm here, but I'm not alone. Lena's voice was steady, resolute. We'll get you back. Hold on. The portal pulsed again, threatening to close. The desert's silence shattered, replaced by the low, mournful cries of the spirits trapped within. The Gravewalkers faced a choice. Retreat and leave Ira behind, or step into the unknown depths and uncover the planet's darkest secrets. Lena tightened her grip on her scanner. We came here for answers. Now, we have no choice. With a final glance at her team, she stepped through the portal. The world shifted around Commander Lena Voss as she stepped through the shimmering portal. The desert's biting wind and endless sand dunes were replaced by cold stone corridors, bathed in a pale, eerie light that seemed to pulse from the walls themselves. The air was thick and heavy, saturated with the weight of forgotten centuries behind her. The other Gravewalkers followed hesitantly, their steps echoing through the narrow passageways. Yarick's scanner flickered wildly, struggling to process the alien technology embedded in the walls. This place? It's alive. Or at least, it was. Lena's eyes adjusted to the dim glow. The corridors stretched endlessly, carved deep. Beneath Kevar-9's surface, lined with glyphs that matched the symbols they'd seen on the bones and ruins above. The story these walls told was one of civilization and devastation, of war and warning. Kale ran a hand over a panel embedded in the rock. This technology predates anything we've seen. It's sophisticated, but dormant. Suddenly, a soft pulse vibrated beneath their feet. The walls around them seemed to respond, the glyphs flaring briefly with light. Lena motioned for silence. Stay alert. This place remembers. They pressed onward, descending deeper into the labyrinth. The air grew colder still, the silence, broken only by the sound of their breathing and the faint hum of ancient machinery awakening. Ira's voice echoed, faintly ahead, guiding them through the twisting tunnels. The team's hope surged as they hurried toward her, but the deeper they went, the more the sense of being watched intensified. Shadows flickered just beyond sight, and strange whispers, half heard, half remembered, seemed to seep from the walls. At last, they reached a vast chamber, the source of the hum. It was a cavernous space filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with energy, casting fractured light onto the bones and relics strewn across the floor in the center. A figure lay suspended in a crystalline cocoon, her body motionless, but her face calm. Surrounding her were ghostly forms, translucent echoes of beings long vanished. Lena stepped forward, heart pounding. Ira. The spirits shifted, their voices a chorus of sorrow and warning. They spoke of an ancient plague, a cataclysm that had wiped out the planet's original inhabitants. The Gravewalkers were not just explorers, they had become part of a long-forgotten story, one of sacrifice and survival. Kale studied the cocoon. This technology, it's preserving her, keeping her alive in stasis. But something is wrong. The energy is unstable. Suddenly, the chamber trembled violently. Cracks appeared in the crystalline walls, and the ghostly figures writhed in distress. Lena realized the portal was closing, and with it, their only way back to the surface. "We need to act fast," she said. "Find a way to stabilize the energy." Yarrick moved to a control panel, his fingers flying over ancient symbols. The system responded slowly, its hum growing louder, threatening to become a roar. Ira's eyes fluttered open, confusion and fear mingling in her gaze. "Lena, what happened?" "We're trapped," Lena said. "But we're going to fix this." The chamber's energy surged, and with a blinding flash, the spirits around them coalesced into a single form, a towering figure of light and shadow. It reached out with hands that seemed to hold the weight of countless memories. "Why do you come?" The entity's voice echoed in their minds. Lena swallowed her fear. "We seek understanding. We want to know what happened here, and how to stop this cycle from continuing." The figure paused, then nodded slowly. "The silence was meant to protect, but it has become a prison." With a gesture, the entity revealed visions of the past civilizations destroyed by their own creations. Secrets buried beneath layers of dust and time, and a warning that the Gravewalkers now carried. Lena's resolve hardened. "We will not let this history repeat." The figure's light intensified, stabilizing the chamber's energy. The crystalline cocoon around Ira softened, releasing her gently as Ira took a shaky breath. The portal reopened, an invitation back to the surface. Lena looked at her team. "We're not just explorers anymore. We're guardians of a legacy." Together, they stepped through the portal, leaving the shadows and silence behind, but carrying the weight of what they had learned. The team emerged from the portal back into the cold, starlit night of Kevar-9's surface. The bone field stretched before them, bathed in ghostly moonlight. The massive skeletons casting elongated shadows like silent sentinels. The silence was no longer empty, it was charged with meaning. Ira, still weak but steady, took a deep breath of the desert air. "What we saw down there, it was more than a prison. It was a warning." Lena nodded, scanning the horizon. "The planet itself is a message. Those bones, the symbols, they speak of a catastrophe that nearly ended everything." Yarrick wiped the sweat from his brow, his mind racing. "The technology we found, it's beyond anything in our records. Whoever built it tried to stop something, maybe themselves." Kale crouched beside a massive femur, tracing the ancient glyphs once more. This wasn't just a planet of bones, it was a battleground. A place where a war was fought against an enemy we don't understand. The team's unease deepened. They had come looking for signs of life, for answers about the missing settlers. Instead, they had uncovered a story of silence, sacrifice, and an ancient force that still lingered. Lena's communicator crackled to life. The voice of the command center was tense. "Commander Voss, status update." Lena straightened. "We've retrieved a survivor. We've encountered advanced alien tech and what appears to be remnants of a civilization wiped out by a great disaster. The planet is unstable." "Understood?" the voice responded. "Prepare for extraction and quarantine protocols. This may be beyond any known threat." As the team waited for extraction, Ira pulled Lena aside. "There's something you need to see." She handed Lena a small data crystal, one she had managed to recover from the chamber below. Lena inserted it into her portable reader, and images flickered to life. Scenes of towering cities, vast armies, and then destruction, an apocalyptic wave consuming everything. The Gravewalkers, Ira whispered, were the original inhabitants. They fought to contain a spreading corruption that consumed life itself. Lena's eyes narrowed. A corruption. Ira nodded. A force that devours light and sound. That's why the silence. It's a defense and a prison, Kale added quietly. If that force escaped, it's still alive beneath the surface. The thought hung heavy between them. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, more violently. This time, the bones around them rattled as if awakening from a long slumber. A distant rumble echoed across the desert. Lena's voice was sharp. Get ready. Something's coming. From the shadows, shapes emerged dark, shifting forms that seemed to absorb the very light around them. The Gravewalkers faced their ancient enemy, not in the depths below, but on the surface. The battle that followed was fierce and chaotic. The team used every tool at their disposal: energy shields, pulse weapons, and the knowledge they had gained. The alien force was relentless, a tide of darkness seeking to reclaim the planet. But the Gravewalkers fought back, their determination fueled by the memory of those who had come before. With every strike, they pushed the shadows back toward the depths. Finally, as dawn broke over Kevar-9, the dark forms receded, slipping into cracks and crevices beneath the sand. Lena stood among her team, exhausted but unbroken. We survived, she said, but this isn't over. The silence returned. But now it felt different, like a warning still echoing through the bones. The Gravewalkers had uncovered a legacy of sacrifice, but also a call to protect a fragile balance, and Kevar-9 was only the beginning. The first light of Kevar-9's twin suns spread slowly across the bone-strewn desert, turning the shadows into long, pale fingers reaching across the sand. The battle had ended, but the scars it left remained deep fissures in the earth, scattered remnants of shattered relics, and a lingering tension in the air. Commander Lena Voss stood at the edge of their camp, staring at the horizon where the portal had shimmered moments before. The Gravewalkers had faced an ancient force that threatened to consume everything and live to tell the story. But surviving was only the beginning. Iris sat beside her, still regaining strength, her eyes reflecting both weariness and a fierce determination. What now? She asked softly. Lena took a deep breath. Now, we become the keepers, the guardians of this silence. Behind them, the team packed their gear, preparing for the extraction that would bring them back to their ship. Yet, none moved quickly. The weight of what they had uncovered kept them rooted for a moment longer. Yarrick approached, holding the data crystal that told the story of a civilization that had fallen to its own creation, a creeping darkness that extinguished life and sound. They fought to imprison this force, using their technology and willpower, he said. But it wasn't enough to destroy it. Kale knelt by a large pile of bones, running his fingers over the smooth surfaces worn by time. Their legacy is in these bones and this silence. They stopped it for now. But if it ever breaks free, again, Lena finished for him, we'll be ready. The communication uplink buzzed a call from command. Commander Voss. The voice crackled. Your mission was to locate survivors and assess the planet's habitability. Report. Lena exchanged a glance with her team. The truth was more complicated. This planet was not just uninhabitable. It was a sentinel, a warning etched in flesh and stone. We found no survivors, Lena replied steadily. But we uncovered a legacy. Kevar-9 holds a secret that could threaten more than just this system. The voice on the other end was silent for a moment. Understood. Await extraction. Quarantine protocols are being prepared. Lena turned off the comm and looked out at the endless desert. This place will not be forgotten, she said. We'll carry their story forward, protect the silence they left behind. As the ship's engines hummed closer, the team gathered their final gear. The ancient ruins, the glowing glyphs, and the restless shadows would remain behind, but the Gravewalkers took with them something far more valuable: knowledge and resolve. Lena paused, placing her hand on one of the massive bones. Rest now. Your sacrifice wasn't in vain. The extraction ship descended, lifting them away from Kevar-9's haunting silence. As they broke orbit, the planet faded beneath them, still enigmatic, still waiting. Lena looked at her crew, faces illuminated by the soft glow of the ship's interior. We've seen what lies beneath the silence. Now it's our duty to guard it. Ira nodded, determination shining through her exhaustion. We're more than explorers now. We're protectors. Lena smiled faintly. The Gravewalkers live on, and somewhere, deep beneath the surface of Kevar-9, the bones and the silence watched and waited for the next chapter in a story written in shadows and light.